Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love guys. Now today's first story comes from Watermelon Bison 12, who says, am I the arsehole for not asking my girlfriend's father for permission to marry her? And apparently there's a new 3-year final update on this one. So I feel like the normal situation I read about is the opposite situation, but I personally feel I'm in the right here. I, 30 male, have been dating my girlfriend, 29 female, for 4 years now, and things have all in all been pretty good. We both don't see eye to eye politically on many things with her father, but still visit him and her mother fairly frequently around holidays, and he is friendly enough to know to not bring up politics around the both of us because we don't agree. But I digress. I've talked about proposing to my girlfriend over the past couple of months and about what she wants, etc. And she mentioned she wanted to ask her dad for permission. I was kind of taken aback. This isn't a normal thing my girlfriend would say. So I asked why. She said because it's something she would like me to do. Her sister's husband did it and some wedding funding from him would likely be contingent on me doing this. I came back with that I wouldn't be asking another person for permission to marry her. It's an extremely outdated tradition for one. I'm a 30-year-old person. I can do what I want to do with someone I love. I don't need anyone else's permission. She got mad and said I just needed to do it because it's a small thing to ask for, and she wants some of the money to have a few more things at our wedding that we won't be able to afford without it. I'm continuing to stand my ground about not asking for this. Am I the arsehole? A commenter says to OP, I'd say you're the arsehole. I can completely understand it being outdated, and I can understand if you end up feeling embarrassed or something by doing it, but she's asking this of you. Being married means that sometimes you compromise on your own comfort to make the other one beyond happy. Also, it's not a bad thing to have financial help towards the wedding, and if asking permission is a way to do that, it's pretty easy. I'll also point out that my husband also contacted my father, but it wasn't, do I have your blessing to marry your daughter, and more, hey, I love your daughter so much, I'm going to ask to marry her. It was just more letting him know of his plans, you know. OP says, I think that is the route I'll propose with my girlfriend. I just don't like the asking permission part. So like you said, if I phrase it as more as, I'm doing this and want to let you know because I respect you, I think that will make both sides happy. Thanks for the suggestion. When told to ask for her father's blessing rather than permission, OP says, I suggested this with asking for both parents and was told that her father will likely want to speak to me alone on it and won't include the mother if I try to ask with both of them. Again, I don't mind telling them I'm going to do this, but the blatant, you have to ask me and only me is what's really off-putting for this. Another commenter says, do you think her father would use this as an opportunity to lord it over you? Is he the type of person who would take advantage of the situation to try and get you to humble yourself for him? Hope he says he won't lord it over me, but it's just his personality to be the overprotective father. The typical own a shotgun so treat her right thing was said when I first met him, so it's always been this way. So it was 6 weeks after this that OP came in with her first update and said, hi y'all, original post is here and shares the link. Am I the arsehole? Didn't allow me to post my update there, so putting it here. So after reading a lot of the responses in the original thread, I decided to ask for my girlfriend's parents' blessing. I told her I was going to do it and she was very happy. We were going to visit about 2 weeks after I posted the thread and I figured it'd be a good opportunity to ask. So my fiance went for a run one morning and I was lounging around talking with her parents when I said I'd like to talk to them about something. They both kind of smiled like they knew what I was going to say, and immediately her dad says, let's go and talk in the garage. So him and I go out there and I phrase it like some people told me to. I want to marry your daughter and I'm letting you know that I plan to propose because I love her. I also want to get your blessing because I respect you and your wife. He was pleased with the answer and smiled and gave his approval for me to propose. All I needed. The proposal went great about a month later. Romantic and just like I had planned. My fiance loved it. So this past Sunday we were discussing venues in the ceremony and my fiance casually said, well, dad wants us to get married in this church, so we'll be doing it here. Oh, bloody hell. Now, I'm not religious and I wouldn't mind getting married in a church, but again, why does his opinion matter for our wedding? So I asked, anything else your dad wants for our wedding? And then she said we also needed to stay in separate rooms the night before our wedding too, per her father. Hilarious since we've been living together for almost 2 years. This led to a massive argument about the wedding. the role of her dad in her life. I told her that up until a couple of months ago, it seemed like she couldn't have cared less about what her dad thought. But would it stop with the wedding? Would it continue on if we had children? Her excuse was that she was ruining her dream wedding and it was contingent on appeasing her father. She didn't understand why I couldn't compromise and get the extra cash to get her the wedding she'd always dreamed of. So I told her, I'm not ready to get married if this is the stance you're going to take with your father, and that did not go over well. The yelling started and things started being thrown at me. Ooh, red flags. So I left. I called my buddy and went to his place. He gladly let me come over. I got tons of missed calls from her, some texts ranging from, I miss you, let's talk it out, to you're an abuser trying to separate me from my family. I just honestly don't know where this behavior is coming from. It's like my fiance has been taken over by some bridezilla that only cares about having a perfect wedding. I'm just taking time to think about everything and what I want to do next. I'll maybe update again after this, but for now, things aren't looking too great for the future of our relationship. Just trying to keep my head above water. So this post was consolidated and then put on the best of Redditor's update up to this point, and we got more updates to come after this, which came after the best of Redditor updates post. OP started commenting in that thread. A downvoted commenter says, this guy is a control freak. All the things his fiancé is suggesting are totally normal things that people do. Having a conversation, not even asking permission per se, just having a conversation and getting their blessing with your intended's parents before proposing is totally normal and common. Getting married in a family's church, even if you aren't especially religious, is normal. Most people spend the night before their wedding apart, all totally normal things. These are pretty tame requests from someone who's funding the wedding, and are all things this guy would probably be doing anyway. This dude wants to get into a dick measuring contest with his future father-in-law and is pissed that his fiancée isn't deferring to him. Oh my word, I can see why that commenter was downvoted, because it's like completely missing the point, isn't it? OP wasn't refusing every compromise trying to win over the future father-in-law or whatever. The problem is literally that every new wedding decision and possible future decisions, like OP said, could come back to dad wants this, rather than this is important to me. A church wedding, fine. Sleeping apart the night before, fine. But when the reason for all of this is to keep dad happy so the money keeps flowing, of course you're going to start wondering where that bloody ends. Like OP said, when you have children, is he going to name it bloody father-in-law junior or something? Because of money or because of whatever manipulative reason he can come up with this time. But there's also bigger concerns in this as well, because once the argument escalated and she started throwing things and calling him an abuser, you should seriously be stepping back and reconsidering everything at that point, in my opinion. Anyway, I've totally got off there because OP did reply to that comment themselves. They said, OP here. We would have been funding 80% of the wedding. The extra 20% or so were extras that my father-in-law said he would cover, but only if we fulfilled certain requests. I don't mind doing things that she wants, but I want to say in these things too, especially since we will be paying for the majority of it. And yes, it's your bloody wedding too. I'm not sure why I'm getting so riled up by this one. Someone asked if anything new has happened. OP says, to be completely honest, not much. Wedding is still on hold for the moment. We've had maybe 2 brief phone calls. One where it started out okay and then it turned into where she couldn't say anything because she was crying so hard. And another brief one to set up a time and place to just talk things out. I'll maybe update depending on how it goes. I've been mostly trying to pick up overtime when I can and focus on work. Easier when I don't have to think about all this other crap. At least I got some time away to play some Hogwarts Legacy. Lol. So 2 months after the first update, OP comes in and says, hey all, been getting quite a few messages asking me how things are going, so I figured I'd give you all a quick update. 1, the wedding is not happening. Wahey. 2, we broke up. I've just moved into a new place after staying with a friend for a bit, and I'm just figuring out life, just working and staying busy with my golf league. My ex and I tried to make it work for a little while after my update, and I think we both realized that after what had transpired, it wasn't going to work. So that's what I got for you. Not that exciting, but hey, honestly, life is pretty boring most of the time, unlike what most people on Reddit would like you to believe. Lol. So 2 months after that, OP comes in with another update and says, hey everybody. Kind of forgot about this account, to be honest. I was thinking about this the other day and logged in and had a couple of people asking how I was doing. To be honest, not much has changed. I think last I left you, I just moved into a new place and my ex and I had separated and we called off the wedding. For about 4 months or so, I didn't have contact with my ex. We just figured it would be best to go our separate ways. I just buried myself in work and kept at trying to keep my mind off her. But out of the blue, I got a message from her just asking how I was doing. We ended up texting for a bit over the next couple of days, and we ended up deciding we want to meet up for a quick round of drinks just to get some closure. Drinks went well, and we continued to text maybe once every 2 weeks or so. One thing led to another, and a random night I got a text from her asking to come over to a new place. So I did. We kept this arrangement going for a while now. No plans on getting back together at all, but it's nice to feel like a normal person every 2 to 3 weeks. So that's really it. Work is good, and I'm thinking about potentially getting back out into the dating world soon. I'll have to end the arrangement with my ex if so, but I think she'd be understanding. Press X to doubt. Anyway, appreciate you all asking about me. Gremlin in Space says, did she ever give any excuse for her behavior back then? Seems kind of wild to go from happy and loved to engaged to broken up in such a short amount of time. Opie says that's a fair question. I didn't get too deep into that. It basically just came down to her wanting the extra cash for the wedding, so she was just so hell-bent on having the perfect wedding and was willing to do anything to get that. She realizes she was wrong now, or at least she says she does. My hesitation is obviously still there because I don't know if she's truthful or not. Gremlin replies saying, I suppose the real question is then, how would this time be different if it was to be a reconciliation? In her desire to get money for a wedding, she instead imploded her entire relationship and got no wedding at all. Seems a steep price to pay for a single day. If you started over, would expectations be different? Would her family accept you back into the fold? She seems to have a rather traditional father/family. Would he give his blessing and financial contribution a second time? And if not, would she be okay with that? Do you even want a relationship with a partner's family that's conditional to you following the rules they have? You aren't just marrying a person, you're marrying into a family. So if you are interested in trying to start again, some of these things might need to be considered. Opie says, I guess I should clarify. When I said get back into dating, I didn't mean with my ex. I think we both realize the arrangement is convenient for the time being, but have no intentions of getting into another relationship with her. That trust has been broken. So, 3 years later, OP came back in with an update and said, what's up everyone? Figured I'd give an update for your enjoyment, seeing as it's the weekend. Someone sent me a post from Best of Redditor Updates that outlined this whole saga, and it was pretty interesting reading all the comments. For those that thought I was stupid enough to not be using protection when seeing my ex, come on now. I'm dumb, but I'm not that dumb. For those of you that thought I was stupid enough to think that my ex wouldn't have an issue going back into the dating world eventually. Great call by the haters. You were correct, lol. About 6 months after my previous update, I decided to officially end it with my ex because I just had felt the relationship had run its course. We hadn't been seeing each other for about 2 months at that point, so I figured it was kind of a natural stopping point. Well, that breakup text turned into about 100 missed calls and 20 extremely angry voicemails, including one where I was threatened with being thrown things at again. So all in all, that just reinforced my decision. Other than that, things have been good. I've just been working and playing golf when the weather is decent. No plans to get in a relationship anytime soon, which is honestly fine by me. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Yeah, I had a feeling she wasn't going to go quietly. I mean, it just didn't feel that way given the history of this. But when Opie sent that reasonable this arrangement has run its course text, and she responded with 100 missed calls, 20 angry voicemails, and then threatened to throw things at him again. I mean, what did she even say? I'm not playing down the violence here, but what did she say? I'm going to throw things at you again when I see you. I think OP dodged a huge bullet here. The relationship ending over wedding funding and her father in this was probably pretty shitty, but the later behavior suggests that he dodged a much bigger bullet, because if someone can't handle a breakup without threatening you and all this kind of stuff and abusive behavior, you don't want to be legally tied to someone like that in the end, do you? And I know it's not really the point of the story, but it always does make me think after stories like that. She's out there somewhere. She's going to be getting with someone else, and this behavior could continue unless, of course, she hopefully looks inwards and changes herself, but can't see that happening anytime soon, really. But good on OP, and I really do wish them all the best for the future and take it one step at a time into that dating world, right? It's a crazy ass world out there, but what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another story. Now our next story comes from Wedding Whistleblower, who says, me, 30 female, wondering whether I should tell a close friend, 30 male, that he shouldn't marry his fiancée, 27 female. Apologies in advance for the wall of text. I have known my friend, we call him Mark, since college. We're very close and hang out together pretty regularly. Mark has been with his fiancée, let's call her Laura, since grad school, about 6 to 7 years. Mark and Laura have been engaged for 2 years and will be married in a month. I know, not much time there. For the first few years of the relationship, had zero problems with Laura. She seemed a bit shy and reserved, which is unusual for our group of friends, but otherwise she seemed like a fine partner for Mark. Indeed, my only reservation was actually that Mark, having a very strong personality and being an overly rational, intellectual and argumentative person, sometimes seemed to run roughshod over Laura. Over the last 2 or 3 years, Laura has opened up a bit more, and initially that was really great. My girlfriend Julie and Laura became closer and started hanging out, and the 4 of us would go out regularly, either just us or with other friends. It was actually pretty great. Recently, however, we started noticing that there are some key issues with their relationship that makes us, and other friends actually, wonder whether they should be together at all. Now that we know Laura better, we've realized she's insanely insecure and anxious. She's constantly complaining about minor things about the wedding, including his parents' small requests, and even the nice things they do for her. We've watched them argue about pretty personal stuff, and she is pretty happy to air their dirty laundry and complain incessantly about things that it's clear he'd rather discuss in private. She's also been somewhat cruel and unfair to him in our presence. Finally, and here's the key thing, they seem to have a pretty fundamental disagreement about a key issue in their relationship. Think something as fundamental as whether or not to have kids, with him being in the firm yes I want to do this and I need a partner who will at least consider it camp, and her being in the I'm saying I'll consider it but I'm pretty sure I'm ultimately going to not want to do this, and that you're kind of an arsehole for asking me to do this in the first place. The argument issue is fairly specific, and so I don't want to give more details for fear of identifying them. In addition, they've been arguing seemingly non-stop for what seems like over a year, with Laura regularly complaining to my girlfriend that she's miserable, anxious, stressed, etc. because of various relationship issues. Mark is not a complainer, but we know he is similarly not happy. There are issues that in our mind are part of Mark's personality that won't change, and Laura knows they will not change. For instance, Mark has long-term close female friends whose friendship he prioritizes highly. Laura thinks their interactions are inappropriate and that he puts their needs above hers, but Mark has been clear that his interactions with them will not change. Mark also has a difficult time consuming career and doesn't have much time to do household chores or spend time alone with Laura. Again, this is not something that will change anytime soon. Another big issue is Laura believes some of Mark's fundamental values have changed over the course of their relationship. Things she admired and found attractive about him initially, and that now she doesn't like very much. As I said, my girlfriend and I have been seeing these issues for some time, and they came to a head recently when we both sort of told them that they should think about postponing the wedding. They acknowledged that they had thought about it and said they had a good long talk and decided they wanted to go ahead with it. They said they'd discussed all their issues and talked them through and come to a consensus. We trusted that they had and sort of shrugged our shoulders. It may be worth noting that although Mark was able to discuss this in a level-headed way, Laura's response was to sort of withdraw for a few weeks and stop talking to us and hanging out with us, and make it clear to our other friends that she was doing this because we didn't support their marriage. She later acknowledged that the reason she did this was because she felt that there was some truth to what we were saying, and hanging out with us upset her because it brought those feelings up again when she was trying to get over them. Just this weekend, we saw them argue again, including about the fundamental question I noted above, and it was clear that they're still in very different places, still unhappy and still arguing constantly. It was also clear and upsetting that Laura was basically including us in the argument so she could badmouth Mark and try to get us on her side. Not only was it not working because we think he's more in the right than she is, but it was also incredibly callous and hurtful to Mark, and she didn't seem to care. We've gotten to the point where it's actually hard to spend time with Laura. My girlfriend doesn't like her at all. I'm fine spending time with her, but really feel that they are not a good match and that they're going to make each other unhappy. At the very least, I feel they need to postpone this wedding until they actually have come to a place where they derive happiness from the relationship, as opposed to this constant fighting about things large and small. The question is, should I talk to Mark about this? I've already shared some of what I'm thinking and been told everything is fine, but this time I might be a little more open and also tell him that I'm happy to handle some of the logistical post-wedding cancelling stuff, calling people, whatever, if that's something that's weighing on him. TLDR, I don't think my friend should marry his fiancée. Should I tell him? Update and see Julie's comment below also. Quick reminder that Julie is OP's girlfriend. So Julie commented saying, I'm the Julie in question. I'd add this to what my love, the OP said. While we have sort of told them they should think about postponing the wedding, that was in a very light-handed way, hoping to spark a conversation, and took place almost a year ago, long before lots of new and troubling information arose. If we were to have the conversation now, it would be far clearer, far more detailed, and include a lot of things that we didn't know at the time. In other words, the first conversation was, have you guys talked about postponing the wedding? And this one would be, do not marry this woman. She is awful. She doesn't even like you. You're unhappy, and it's only going to get worse. Perhaps this is a rationalization, but I truly believe that he does not know that we think this wedding is a bad idea. And he definitely does not know that we actively dislike his fiancée. I frankly struggle to see how we'll be able to have this kind of friendship we used to have with Mark if they go through with it. That's not a threat. It's her or us. It's just reality. As OP said, I cannot stand Laura for more than a few minutes at a time. I cannot help but take everything she says in the most negative possible light, seeing every comment as confirmation of my bad opinion of her. I hate the way she treats him. I don't know if I'll be able to treat her with the kind of respect and kindness that is required of even having a decent relationship with her husband. I can already see myself avoiding spending time with him as a result. Even conversations that have nothing to do with this are tinged by awkwardness. Not just on our end, but on theirs, because they know we see the problems, even if they don't know how upset we are by them. Ultimately, I'm leaning away from saying something. I think there is such a small likelihood of a good result, him calling off the wedding, and such a high likelihood of a bad result. She comes to hate us, and it dooms our relationship with him and / or causes her to badmouth us to mutual friends, that I think is a bad idea. As a side note, I don't put any weight on the let them make their own decisions responses here because that's so obvious it's not worth worrying about. Of course they get to make their own decision, but not going to actively try and stop the marriage if they go through with it. The question is whether what we have to say should be involved in that decision or not, because we love him and have perspective on it that he doesn't. So OP comes back in with an update, and that came 5 months later. And it said, so Julie and I took the advice of most people here and kept our mouths shut about our feelings about Laura. We were enthusiastic at the wedding and went out of our way to be gracious and kind to her in the run up to it and after. The wedding went off without a hitch, and we thought maybe they'd turn over a new leaf after the stress of the wedding was removed. She'd be a better partner to him. Sadly, the opposite happened. I guess I should start by explaining the key disagreement they had prior to marriage was about having an open relationship. He was very much in the want to at least explore this camp, and she seemed very reluctant and kind of pissed that he was asking her to consider this in the first place. Shortly before the wedding, however, she started to develop an interest in another man, and all of a sudden her doubts were all but gone. Mark was happy and excited for her, and things appeared to be going better. Unfortunately, that didn't last. Over the last few months, Mark and Laura had increasingly bad fights, and pretty much every time we asked how things were going, he'd respond with, not good. Whenever we hung out, she did increasingly annoying things, sulking if we weren't doing an activity she liked, leaving events without even saying goodbye, complaining that we're excluding her from things because we failed to somehow read her mind and determine that she wanted to do something other than what we were doing. We had a talk with Mark about this, and he sort of agreed that she was being ridiculous in several ways, that we had a right to be upset with her attitude, and said that maybe we should take a break from hanging out with her. We were fine with this, but it was pretty annoying that she was basically making him choose between spending time with us and with her. A few weeks after that conversation, he called to tell us that they're getting a divorce. We were pretty shocked, but here's the skinny. Shortly after the return from their honeymoon, Laura went to see her, let's call him, boyfriend. She came back sad and upset and told Mark that the guy had broken things off, presumably because he felt differently about the relationship now that she was married. He empathized and comforted her. A few days later, he noticed she was acting a little weird, checked her email and realized that the breakup was a lie. Essentially, boyfriend had told her they could only keep seeing each other if no one else, including Mark, knew about it. Instead of breaking it off, having a conversation with Mark about it, or anything else sensible, she decided to lie to her husband so she could have an affair. And I call it an affair because even in an open relationship, lying under these circumstances definitely makes it cheating in my book. He of course felt incredibly hurt and betrayed, but instead of kicking her to the curb, like I would have, he talked to her and to the guy to explain that this was unacceptable and uncool. I told them that he was fine allowing the relationship to continue. The only thing he asked was that, going forward, she refrained from sharing certain details of their relationship, Mark and Laura's, with the boyfriend. Reasonable request, no? Apparently not to her. A few months later, he finds out she set up a separate email account and was using it to communicate with the boyfriend about precisely the kind of things Mark has asked her not to share with him. She had left the account open and had previously told him he was free to check her email and phone as a way to regain trust after the first fuck-up. She was also telling the boyfriend that she was thinking about a divorce because things were so terrible with Mark. Now again, this is where I'd have kicked her the fuck out. Instead, Mark takes a few days to cool off away from her, comes back and tells her she needs to break up with the boyfriend and focus on fixing their relationship through therapy and closing off any potential romantic partners. She is initially very apologetic and seems to want to work on things, but of course, after a few days, she starts throwing hissy fits because she didn't know it was that big of a deal to him, and he won't sleep in the same room as her, which to her means he's not really trying to fix it. Keep in mind, it's been less than 2 weeks since he found out she betrayed him for the second time in less than 4 months. He tells her he needs time. At this point, he's seriously thinking about divorce, but doesn't want to give up on the marriage, considering it's been less than 6 months. And then he comes home from hanging out with us for the evening. She comes home a bit later and just basically tells him she made out with some guy from her gym she'd been hanging out with. Essentially, she decided that things weren't going to work anyway, and she chose the most childish and hurtful way she could to end it. So now, they're divorced. I'm not even sure why I'm posting this. Mostly because I wanted to vent to strangers about how horrible this woman is, and I can't do it in real life. He's handling this extremely well and being super gracious and mature about it, and to his credit, he isn't really into shit talking her, though she deserves it, and everyone he's told essentially reacts with some validation of, well, I guess now I can tell you all the things I never liked about her. I, on the other hand, want to see you next Tuesday punter into next week, so there is that. Thanks again for all the original comments, the helpful ones and the not so helpful ones. It's always kind of cathartic to put this in together and get it out of my head. The commenter says to OP, look, both were hoping that the other would compromise, hoping that the other would budge, and neither did. So why does she get shit for not opting out of the relationship? Mark could have done the same and called the wedding off, but he told you they were still going through with it. OP says she gets shit because she lied and cheated, simple as that. Commenter replies saying, cheated in a relationship that Mark himself made into an open one. Okay. Commenter says, well, that explains a lot. You probably ought to have mentioned that before. I'm probably on the other side of this issue, but Mark reaps what he sows. She is insecure, she's having anxiety constantly, and is in a state of perpetual panic. He suggests having an open relationship, and he has female friends he won't give up. Come on, you can't be that naive. What a scumbag. He loaded the gun and put it in her hand and dared her to use it. She gave him a taste of his own medicine, what he put her through. I have to wonder about people like this and why you're friends with either of them. I don't have a problem with open relationships. Had them when I was younger and it was fine. You don't suggest it to people who are insecure and feel threatened by them. Oh, and you're surprised she found a guy right away. I'm not. How could you be? I don't care if my post makes you feel bad. It gets downvoted, whatever. She did something shitty. I'm not excusing it. I'm explaining it. I'm giving you the reason. Stupid is as stupid does. Mark is toxic. He brought out the worst in Laura, cultivated it, and then crushed her with it. She is cruel because she learned from the best, Mark. And if you want to associate with him, I think you need to look at yourselves. You and Julie, because I sure as hell wouldn't. OP replies saying, I think given my last post in this one, this is not an unreasonable conclusion if you fill in some blanks. I won't ask you to trust me when I say that over the last few months it's become clear to me, because I've caught Laura in multiple lies, omissions, and truth manipulations, that her previous complaints about Mark and her seemingly anxiety and stress were at best wildly exaggerated, and at worst clear attempts to make herself look like a victim to get sympathy from others. She's lost friends over this. Her best friend, maid of honor, almost dropped out of the wedding in ways wholly unrelated to her relationship. Also, I don't think Mark forced her into anything. It was clear that he wanted a relationship where this was at least a possibility, and she said it was. I agree that her clear reluctance should have been a huge red flag and, in my opinion, enough to call it off, but he chose to take her word for it, particularly because she was so eager and enthusiastic about the enterprise after she found someone she liked. Also, not that it particularly necessary to the story, she had at least 3 separate partners that I know about, and he had none. He was happy for her and supportive of her relationships, as long as they weren't outright betrayals of his trust. He's also treating her very kindly even now in terms of logistics and splitting assets. He doesn't want his friends to badmouth her or be rude to her. I understand you think he is toxic and cruel, and nothing I say over the internet is likely to convince you otherwise, but I will just have to disagree. Commenter says, I don't know man, you're painting him to be the good guy here, but he asks his monogamous fiancé to have an open relationship. That's hurtful shit and a recipe for retaliation. If it were me and my boyfriend/fiancé did that, I'd dump him ASAP, but I guess she went for the slow burn. Comment says, I'm glad I wasn't the only one thinking this. He had a monogamous relationship with her, even got engaged to her, then sort of backpedaled on his commitment with a request of an open relationship. This is the kind of request you bring way early in the relationship, like a second or third date early. You don't ask that right when you're about to do an act that is a symbol of monogamy like marriage. It sounds like that she was at least somewhat of a decent person until he asked about the open relationship, then shit hit the fan. At that point, she looked obnoxious and angry to everyone by misplacing their anger from the request of the open relationship and general issues stemming from her relationship. She clearly didn't want an open relationship but did it for him, and that tension of doing something she did not want to do caused waves and ultimately ended the relationship. You need to be 100% on the same page with open relationships, not 95% or 75%, otherwise it simply won't work. It wasn't just her. Mark is equally at fault here. OP says, I wasn't clear about this. This wasn't something he knew he wanted walking into the relationship. His views on this evolved over time, and she was aware of this and participated in conversations about it. When he finally decided it was what he actually wanted, before they got engaged, he told her and she eventually agreed. He wasn't trying to hide the ball. Commenter quoted, she eventually agreed, and then says, yeah, that means she initially wasn't into it, which means he begged and pleaded and whined until he got his way. Doesn't sound like she was ever too into it and got pressured. He should have either dropped it or dumped her. And that was the last conversation on the matter. Look, I'm not sure who I like in this story, if I'm being honest. Laura clearly had some questionable choices. The lying, the hiding relationships, the breaking agreed boundaries and whatever was going on in this. Blowing up the marriage within months, you know. But OP in this as well, and Julie clearly had some very rose-tinted glasses when it came to Mark, because it seems to me that the supposed fundamental disagreement, quoting there, turns out to be an open relationship. That's not some like minor lifestyle preference, that's a huge relationship-defining issue, and by OP's own account, Laura was reluctant, anxious about it, and initially unhappy with the idea, while Mark was firmly, I need a partner who will at least consider this camp. In fact, do you know what all I could picture as I was reading this story is, do you know the Spider-Man meme where you got three Spider-Mans all pointing at each other? That's all I could see. Because like some of the comments were saying, when you're with someone who's already insecure about your female friendships, already anxious, already struggling in the relationship, bringing in, I want to explore non-monogamy, just seems to be like playing with dynamite. If it's truly a deal breaker for you, end the relationship. Don't keep pushing forward to marriage, hoping that somehow it's going to just sort its bloody self out, right? And going back to the rose-tinted glasses, like I was talking about OP, seeing Mark in that way, it had me side-eyeing OP because, and obviously I don't know the full truth, but every concern about Mark seemed to get dismissed while every flaw in Laura seems to get magnified. I don't know if this is a fair takeaway on this, but it just felt like Laura struck the match while Mark built the bonfire. Neither of them should have been nowhere near a wedding. Simple as that. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. I'm going to be interested on this one. Let us know your thoughts, and I will see you in the next one. Take care and much love.